Do you have access to a car? And do you like going #full send? Well, here's an answer for you that may surprise you. I want you to go out to the racetrack. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Getting our vehicle set up to go out to the racetrack, and what are we going to bring out to the racetrack. My name's Kane, Bernie's not here, but this is Bernie Rubber's Garage. Let's get started. Okay, let's talk about how to get started. First off, let's see the instructions. Oh, how convenient. Okay, now with step 1 complete, let's talk about how we're going to get started. So first off, jump on the website motorsportreg.com and have a look for an event around your area. Once you've got that event, you can go ahead and sign up. And then we're going to get ready for the track day. And the first step for that one is a tech inspection. These two tech sheets are just from two providers around the Dallas area, Apex and Eagles Canyon Raceway. They're both very similar, and this is what we're going to go over today. Alright, so first step is to jack up the car. And you can see I've already done that. And remove the wheels. Next up, we're going to start in the engine compartment. So first off, we're going to check the oil level and all the fluid levels. Alright, the oil or R level is good. Might as well check the catch can. Catch can has plenty of room left. Coolant next. Good level on the coolant. Let's check the power steering. Now a tip. These are just paper towels held in by zip ties. If you have some reservoirs that may leak a little or the seal isn't quite as good as it should be, this is a little trick you can use, and as long as it doesn't get covered in any flammable fluids, it should be okay. Let's talk about brake fluid. So if this is your first time going out to a track event, you want to upgrade your brake fluid to a high temperature solution. Right now I'm running the Motul RBF 600. Probably going to switch to the RBF 660 here on the next fluid change. Since this is .4 racing fluid, it is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs water. So we'll be changing out the brake fluid every 6 months from now on. And that 6 months is a max. I can see on the side here that we're good with the brake fluid. Clutch fluid is in this reservoir in this vehicle. And we're good there also. Okay, those are the main fluid levels in the engine compartment. Next up, let's make sure our battery is secure. Battery is secure. Alright, before we leave the engine compartment, belts, hoses, make sure the entire engine compartment is clean, and we'll jump underneath, make sure there's no leaks, and it's nice and tidy under there. Alright, so just having a look at the belt condition. This belt was changed about a year ago, so that looks fine. Let's jump under. Okay, underneath the car, we can see more of the belt. And everything looks good. General condition check. Have a look for any fluids that are leaking. All the way down the back of the car. And it all looks tidy down here. While we're down here, we can have a look at the coolant hose. Just up there. Looks like it's in good condition. And last time up the top, the upper radiator hose. No leaks, good condition, and it's on there nice and tight. Okay, after the engine compartment check, we can take a look at brakes and suspension. So first off with suspension, we want to make sure there's no leaks on the struts. And with the suspension, you want to make sure you do a nut and bolt check. Now, I've already got some aftermarket parts on here. Just a little suggestion, if you are putting on different parts and you have to tighten up the bolts, once they're torqued, go ahead and paint with the paint pen, just a line. Go ahead and draw that line on there, and that way it's a quick visual reference to make sure that your bolts are torqued. Along with the nuts and bolts, you also want to check all your joints. Alright, check for the rubber boots, make sure there's no cracking, upper lower ball joints, and we're going to do that for all 4 sides. Now the brakes, we want to make sure that the brake rotor has no cracks, no lip, and with the brake pads you want to make sure there's at least 50% brake pad remaining. Check these brake pads, you have to get right in there, and you can see we've got plenty of pad left. Once we've done that to all 4 corners, we can continue on. In the rear, everything is much the same. We're going to make sure there's no struts that are leaking. Look at all our bolts on our suspension system. In the rear, we can look at the axle boots, make sure we've got no grease. And what we will do is have a look at our differential fluid. Okay, so we're here under the car at the differential. Our fill plug is right in the corner there. Drain plug is going to be down the bottom. So to check the level, we're just going to remove this plug, and with the car being level, the fluid level should just start a small little drip. That's how you know when your differential fluid is full. Transmission, in the Corvette's case, it's in the back. Find the fill plug and just make sure it's level. Yeah, look at this. I think this titanium exhaust has a slight crack in it. Doesn't look too bad for now, but I'll need to get that fixed eventually. Okay, so to finish up the outside, we're going to go around, make sure all the body panels are secure, and have a look at our tow hook situation. Okay, so next up, the tow hook. A lot of OEM manufacturers have this kind of tow hook, which can thread into your bumper. So you want to get one for your front and rear. On the Corvette, I had to make these tow hooks. This one's in the rear, and here's the front tow hook. Make these, if you're going to make them, make sure that they're in there nice and solid. If you ever need to be towed out of the track, sometimes the team members, if they can't find your tow hook easily, they're gonna hook up to whatever the easiest thing is to hook up, and whether that's a tie rod end or something like that, and you want to try to avoid that. So make sure you have tow hooks in the front and the rear. On the interior, first thing, make sure it's nice and clean. You're going to want to remove any floor mats. What happens is that it could potentially roll up under your accelerator pedal and get stuck there. You definitely don't want that, so make sure it's nice and clean, tidy. Remove any floor mats. Seats and seat belts. The OEM seat belt is okay if that's all you've got. You want to make sure that they're not frayed and they're in good condition. In this case, we've got this fixed back seat. It's definitely solid, and we've got our 6-point harness, which is in good condition. On the day of the event, you want to go through and remove any loose items, even in your glove box. So remove all that stuff there on the day of the track. And a special note for those of you in convertibles, you want to make sure you have a roll bar before you go out. Now, some vehicles have an OEM roll bar that may be sufficient, but definitely jump online, have a look and see what other guys are doing. For instance, the ND Miata, most people are going to go ahead and replace the OEM factory roll bar. In this case, all I have is a harness bar back here. No roll cage, and that may be something for the future. On this side in the interior, I've got my fire extinguisher mounted. These aren't mandatory, but are always a good idea. Not only for yourself, but perhaps for others. Maybe you can help save someone one day. And finally, your wheels and tires. You can run street tires when you go out to the track, however, eventually you want to upgrade. In my case, these are the Nitto NT05s. They're about a 200 tread wear rating. I enjoy them, they're good. The price range is not bad. With your tires, you want to make sure you're looking at the tread depth, make sure it's sufficient, and have a look for any unusual wear, such as camber wear or something like that. And just a suggestion for wheel weights, go ahead and find some high-speed tape. This is aluminium high-speed tape from DEI, and we've gone ahead and just taped up those weights. You don't want them to fly off on a track day. Remember that your brakes are going to get really hot, and that weight glue may come off. So go ahead, tape them up, and that way you don't get surprised with an odd vibration issue halfway through your track day. Okay, now that we've got the car inspection complete, final thing would be to put the wheels on, torque them to spec, and the car is done. Next up, we're going to talk about what we're going to bring out to the track. The most important one is going to be your helmet. Now, most track providers will have helmet rentals available. However, if you have your own helmet, obviously that's going to be the best option. In my case, this is a Bell helmet. This one is DOT approved as a motorcycle helmet and Snell 2015 approved. In hindsight, I would just go with a racing helmet. And the reason for that is that this motorcycle helmet doesn't have provisions for a Hans device, which would normally clip in somewhere around here. Now let's talk about the container. You want to go to your local store and find a container that is an appropriate size for your trunk. This is a little small, however, I used to take a BMW Z3M out to the track. That thing has a small trunk. So that's the reason why mine is, my trunk's a little bit small. It still fits everything in, and it works just fine. Okay, in the bottom here, not necessary, we've got some jumper cables. Maybe not for me, but maybe for someone else. You never know who's going to need a set of these. So I've got them handy. We just set them in the bottom. Okay, next up, fluids. It's always a good idea to bring some extra fluids just in case you happen to drip a little bit out. We've got some extra engine oil. Your car is going to burn oil on the track. Even if it doesn't do it on the street, chances are really high just because you're running it at higher RPMs for extended period of time. So go ahead, bring an extra quart or two of oil. Alright, a little bit of power steering fluid, a little bit of brake fluid. Shouldn't need it, however, if you have it available to you, you never know. Already spoke about tow hooks. These are just extra, again, just in case someone needs it on the day. A little bit of duct tape, a little bit of masking tape. The masking tape can be used for track numbers, just in case you don't have any. The track numbers there, how I get that is, I'm cheap. Ask my wife, I'm pretty cheap. So I ordered some vinyl off of Amazon, and what I do is I print out some track numbers and then just trace them straight onto the vinyl, slap it on the car. There's other options. The cheapest is probably just going to be masking tape. They use track numbers on the track mainly for safety. Alright, so let's say your vehicle is billowing out smoke. Well, now the track workers know they're looking for a number 24 black Corvette, and they can pull the correct vehicle into the pits and sort the issue out. Alright, I have an extra set of brake pads. Now these pads have about 30% material left on them, so they're not suitable to take out onto the track. However, if we have a brake pad failure of any sort, we can throw these in and at least get home, and maybe even get the last session in. So always a good idea just to bring some extras if you have them laying around. This here is the tape I use to tape up the wheel weights. DEI cool insulating tape. Got a little bit extra around just in case we lose wheel weights and need to tape them back up. Okay, an oil filter wrench. You'll also bring an extra oil filter in case you need to do an oil change out there, but just in case it gets stuck on tight, definitely a good idea to have. Personal items, we've got some sunscreen, some hand sanitizer, ibuprofen just in case you get a headache, maybe you forgot to drink enough water, not a bad idea. And got to keep that breath fresh. Paper towels to wipe up those fluid drips. and some rags, just in case. A little bit of universal grease, and some brake parts cleaner, just to clean it up. These two tools are going to be probably the most commonly used items on track day. First one, your torque wrench. Make sure those lug nuts are tight. And secondly, your tire pressure gauge. Now you're going to be running a lot lower tire pressures when you get out to the track. And by that I'm referring to the difference between the OEM specified cold tire pressure and your track cold tire pressure. Or more commonly measured would be your hot pressure. So for example, these are about 29 psi from the factory. That's what they want you to run on the street. When I go to the track, I take out about 4 psi. And as soon as I come off from a session into pits, I go ahead and measure the hot temperatures. And for this tire setup, I like to see about 34 psi hot. So every single session, you're going to check all 4 tires, make sure you're running the correct pressure. A couple of extra but unnecessary items. I've got a cam position sensor for an LS6. Don't ask me why. And a serpentine valve. In my little tote, I carry my racing gloves. I've also got a 10 Hertz GPS. This is just for lap times. Don't forget that phone mount so you can video and show everyone how you #full send. Wheel chocks. These are available from any tool store really. The reason why we want these is our brakes are going to be flaming hot once we get up to the track. Well, hopefully they're not flaming, but they're going to be hot. So we don't want to set our parking brake. Using these chocks, we just back up, roll into them, and as soon as the car stops, leave it out of gear, handbrake off, and the chocks are going to keep the car in place. The next item to bring is a foldable chair. In this case, this is a camping chair. It's nice and small, so it doesn't take up much space. But if you've got plenty of room in your boot, then a folding chair will be fine. Between each session, you normally have about an hour. So don't forget to bring your chair so you can sit down and relax with your friends and talk about how you guys are #full sending it. The lid of the tote can be used to tape your schedule on. That way it's a nice easy reference so you know when you guys are going up next. Aside from the tote, you do want to bring all your basic tools. I'm talking wrenches, screwdrivers, flatheads, Allen keys, sockets, other torque wrenches, extensions, adapters, gloves, zip ties, thread locker, all those sort of basic tools, anything you think you may need just in case you have an issue out there and you'll be able to fix it. Now, I'm probably not talking about any major issues. Let's say you snap an axle. Well, that's not going to be fixed out on the track. But any of the smaller items, let's say there's a small leak somewhere, something that you might be able to resolve out there, bring the tools you feel that you might need to fix that. Alright, so now you have the tote ready, your tool chest would be full. You can pack this all in and get ready to go out to the track. Now get a good night's sleep the night before, because if this is your first time going out, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna be tired by the end of the day, probably sore. So that's how I prepare for a track day. Let me know if I'm missing anything. Go ahead, comment. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and I'd really appreciate that subscribe. But that's all we've got time for today, so thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Okay, so a little bit of encore footage. I was just about to put this tire back on and decided to have a look at these tire weights. You can see here, this one came loose and has moved. So that's a great example of why we want to put some tape over those weights. Anyway, just a little note. See you next time. The lid of the tote